Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason, which is the name of this game, by the way, for anybody that might be new around here. That's the reason I say that is because that's what this game is called. I had somebody ask me about that and I had to take a step back, right? I've been doing this for, gosh, more than a year at this point, so I had to really put myself in my spot. But anyways, welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason, where today we're going to be looking at a match that was recently played on Glacial Gap. Glacial Gap, a very heavy metal map. As you can see, there's loads and loads of metal spots. We'll continue to take a look at this here in a second and talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages that you have playing on this map on the front line and in the back line. But today, as our blue team leader and Armada commander, going for a couple of solar panels, already on 4 mechs, is a commander that goes by the name of Gaioe. Some of them are easy. Some of them are so easy. Rebellion, Dinosuchus, a very cool dinosaur, by the way. Murderbot, you know, Pirate Man, Baba Comte. Yeah, there's some cool ones that are just super easy, but the blue commander definitely making my life hard. Spawning on the other side of the map, spawning in the water here. It's going to be indeed Pirate Man. Pretty interesting that Pirate Man is going to be playing in the water right here. You know who else is a Pirate Man? Is Vanaja. I wonder if this is some sort of alt account, maybe playing with the noobs here. I sure hope not, because I think that's basically frowned upon, but who's to say? It's just, we tend to refer to Vanaja as the drunken pirate. I wonder if that's where the inspiration for this player came from. Now, clocking in at 27 open skill, it means we're going to be taking a nice relaxing look at a lower level game of Beyond All Reason. Definitely in the lower tiers, the metal leagues you might call it, if this was a game with that sort of matchmaking system. Something I would say comparable to, oh, I don't know, bronze or iron or silver or something like that. The lower tiers, right? The fun tiers is another way of looking at it. Resbot's already headed out on the map right here. The yellow commander, F-Seer, going to be a Cortex commander, sending out this Resbot all ready to try and eat up some of this metal right here, which gives me an excellent segue to talk about how much metal there really is on this map. So, if we take a look right here, these are all 2.0 metal extractors, and you can see in the midsection right now, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 metal extractors. It means 12 metal per second for anybody who controls this patch of metal extractors, and then an extra 8 metal per second for anybody who controls any of these other clusters of 4. It means that on this map, you control these very specific little clusters of area. You want to cram those full of static defense as much as possible, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to control all this space in the middle. It means that this is one of those maps where specific areas are going to be much more important than controlling wider areas. And look, I've drawn a happy little face right here. Anyway, drawing lessons aside, a couple of ticks have made it through to the backline. The grunts are in position to deflect this quite nicely, though. One of the ticks already goes down, and the grunts are continuing to fire away as best that they can. It looks like we do also have, well, yeah, a little bit of damage done right there. The yellow commander deflecting that Resbot, nicely done. And with the yellow Resbot now eating up a whole bunch of these wreckages. Ooh, we're going to catch the yellow one here as well. Alright, well, an eye for an eye. Both Resbots go down right here. One for the red and one for the blue, and it does mean that we're pretty close to even, but I will say that's 400, 500-ish metal that was in the midsection here has already gone back. Already entirely gone back to, who was that? Was it the yellow commander that sent this out? I do believe it was. Yeah, F-Seer, the yellow commander. Now, my goodness, what an aggressive early naval game. We do have, wow, what a very greedy start. Okay. So, prototypically, whenever you're playing as Navy, especially if you're playing Cortex, which most of the time you will be, the build order that tends to be common practice is 1 construction ship and then 5 gunboats. And you go for that because it puts you pretty low on metal, but it leaves a little bit of room in the tank to go for things like, for instance, a couple extra gunboats or a missile ship or another constructor, whatever it takes, right? So that's kind of the general basis right here, and so you can see why that's so effective right now for the Seafoam Green Commander, who is easily taking over the high seas right now, shutting down 3 different constructors. We've got the third one over here, taking control of this high ground and blasting down the frigate right here. These gunboats are no joke. They do a huge amount of damage, especially when they're grouped up and they can get that flanking bonus. These gunboats can be really, really nasty. Now, to the Red Commander's credit, these metal extractors did come up and online, and there's not going to be anything to shut those down for a good long while here, so it does make sense to try and rush those out as quick as possible. But the lack of defenses here and the massive amount of reclaim available does make me a little bit worried, I won't lie. The Hot Pink Commander now going to move on over in that direction to try and resurrect, or reclaim actually, huh? I was expecting a resurrection here, but instead going to reclaim a whole bunch of this wreckage. Of course, the blue team without any real way to attack any of the underwater forces either. Oh, there's a submarine. Okay, nicely done. Submarine will, of course, be quite nice against any of the units here that are standing still, but as soon as those start to move around, They are going to be quite difficult for that submarine to target. One of the problems with submarines is, of course, the fact that they're very, very slow to fire. Or rather, their torpedoes take a while to connect is probably the more accurate thing to say. Grunson and Sizers on the front line, and my goodness, an excellent little transport right here. Yeah, the Blue Commander transporting out into the midsection. Nicely done. We also have a Centurion, of course, on the front line. Lovely stuff from the Blue Commander. Goes ahead and goes for an early Centurion to try and blast down whatever it can. And gonna start firing away at a rocket bot here, trying to at the very least. The thing is, the rocket bot can only engage from a very short line of sight. It means that without support from a radar tower or anything else with a longer line of sight, the Rocketeer actually has shorter firing range than the Centurion does, because the Centurion essentially has full line of sight out to its entire firing range. It's kind of a weird interaction because it means earlier on, Centurions are way more powerful than Rocketeers in a 1v1. Obviously, I mean, they cost quite a bit more, but later on, as the Rocketeers mass up and as there's usually more and more units to support those Rocketeers, the Centurion can start to fall off quite heavily. Ooh, nice engagement. I didn't think we were going to pull the trigger, but the Blue Commander manages to jump on top of the Tank Commander's Rocketeers here. An excellent engagement. Manages to blast down 4 of those Rocketeers, 3 of those Rocketeers, 4 of those Rocketeers, no. Right works learns to count. 1, 2, 3 Rocketeers. There we are. Centurion's still disassembling some of these Rocketeers on the front, though. There's the 4th one. Does go down. Resbot's going to start reclaiming from the front here as well. Centurion forced to back off at this point. It has definitely gotten its value, though. It's killed more than enough units here and done more than enough damage to justify its cost. Resbot running away as a load of pawns pushes forward right here. The Maroon Commander now sending these pawns across the map. Trying to, at the very least, find some value with them. The submarine under the water here has been doing a wonderful job of continually harassing down these units and eventually cleaning up this side of the map. Now, that constructor is very low HP, but it did manage to get the mexes up and running, and that's really all that matters. Next, we need to just lock down these 4 over on the southern side, and this is going to be a good old-fashioned naval brawl. Now, one of the issues with Navy is, of course, expanding is very, very slow. You have to keep continually devoting resources to expanding, meanwhile not over-devoting resources, right, and crippling yourself. It's a tricky balance to strike, but the best commanders are able to hit that balance perfectly, and it means that you're continually scaling throughout the game. Usually my strategy is just to build 3 constructors and have 2 build tidal generators and have 1 build tidal energy converters. Roughly the balance that I like to go for, but it is a little bit heavy in the resources. You can also go for 1 and 1 apiece. Shuriken here doing the best that they can, trying to paralyze as many of these forces as possible. Obviously, with the Pawn's Gauss cannons, they technically can fire up into the air, and so it does mean that eventually they do get shot down there. Blue Commander trying to de-gun down these Rocketeers here as well. LLT is up and running. Oh, Maroon Commander steps within range. Uh-oh. You do not want to stand there, my friend. Oh, yeah, with the flanking bonus from the Blue Commander as well. This is a really, really bad fight. There we go. Yeah, Maroon Commander finally gets out of there, but my goodness. Quite a lot of damage. 55% damage done by this LLT. You can see a silver star hero that LLT is after managing to fire away at the Commander for just a couple of seconds, showing just how dangerous those really are. Zadoxis, the Green Commander, holding a commanding position over all these metal extractors here. Lovely stuff indeed. Looks like we're going to go for some exploiters as well. Always cool to see. Those 250 armed metal extractors provide quite a lot of sturdiness to an early game composition that otherwise you can't really get out of static defenses. A lot of the T1 static defenses are actually pretty flimsy. Heavy laser towers and lightning or flamethrower towers are basically the only exception to that, but all the rest of those are really, really easy to blast down. Means that putting those exploiters up is definitely a good option for making sure that at the very least a couple of T1 unit spam units like pawns or grunts or ticks or all that sort of stuff aren't going to be able to kill you on a little run by. Nice engagement over here for the red and pink commander who have managed to blast down a couple of submarines here for the blue team. They were trying to sneak around with those submarines but didn't find the angle they were hoping for. Maybe re-engaging here wouldn't be the worst idea, but as long as that destroyer is in the area, it's going to be quite difficult in order to actually do anything about it. Interesting. Okay, so we've gone for some of these shark's teeth. I wonder what the ideal way to use these is. There's some perfect radius where if you build a torpedo launcher and then you have the shark's teeth in a big circle, you would keep boats out of the area, but it would allow your torpedo launcher to continue to fire. Interesting. Obviously, plasma weaponry is just going to fire right on over it, so that doesn't feel like the right solution, but it definitely feels like it might be. There's a way to make it the right solution, right? There's a way for those walls to be effective. I would love to see it. The blue commander drawing a helpful illustration here to try and point out where he thinks Enish should be going. I don't disagree. I think that's a big opportunity path that's available right here, and if FCR is going to continue producing on the front line, there's no reason why Zadoxis or anyone else shouldn't move forward and try to D-gun down that laboratory. That's such a big target that you're going to have a really hard time body blocking with the commander. I think if the green commander spots this, and indeed they have, D-gunning is going to be basically a no-brainer here. There we go. Green commander takes note and immediately starts walking forward. D-guns the laboratory right there on the front line, way too far forward, but will pay for it with the commander's life. Now, it's a double-edged sword because, of course, paying for that with the commander's life, but also taking out all those tanks does mean that the yellow commander is essentially woefully alone on the southern side, and so it means that these aggravators are going to have a fine time firing away. The agitator, of course, is going to be firing away here as well. Ooh, a self-destruct of the comm takes out all of the pawns. An excellent sacrifice to bring down that blue army. We only really needed 5 or so pawns in order to bring it down. That was definitely a huge value for the yellow commander. Probably taking out about a commander's worth of metal in that kill against those pawns, and the connection and the thermonuclear explosion that was those pawns' lives going up in smoke here. Now, one of the problems that I often have when I see agitators on the front line is that they can't really find much value. This is certainly not a situation that I would consider low value. This agitator has been firing away for quite some time. It's done a lot of damage to commanders. It's continually chipped away T1 units, and I would say is definitely denying a lot of space right here that otherwise would be comfortably held by the red team. Denying these metal extractors is, of course, important, but also chipping away at those units and doing a bunch of damage is going to be really, really nice. T2 is up and running in the backline right now. Looks like a 11-minute T2 transition right here. The green commander already up with T2 and is handing out T2 to the teammates. And then, of course, once they get their T2 metal extractors up and running, they're going to feel pretty comfortable to go ahead and step into a full-blown T2. Love to see the teamwork here. It looks like everybody's been shared a T2 constructor, so it means, of course, that those T2 economies are going to be coming up in line. Likewise for the red team that actually appears to be, a little bit further ahead on the T2 curve. Yeah, we've got the T2 mexes almost fully completed for every commander here. T2E converters coming up and online as well. It looks like the red team is just barely ahead as far as the eco curve goes. But if it's any inclination as to what the eco looks like right now, it's about a 20% advantage for the blue team overall. Largely, I would have to believe that that comes from holding so much more ground here and denying so much more ground here. Medium tanks ravaging the metal extractors over on this side as well, doing a lovely job of keeping that all protected. Constructor boats setting up some walls over here. All right, not bad. The air constructor building some anti-air defenses here as well, trying to lock off this area so that no fighters can go through there. Or at the very least, maybe scout planes wouldn't be able to go through there. T2 laboratory up and running now. The Navy's ready to engage in a T2 battle. Do we have T2 up and running here for the red team? We do not. Okay. A lot of build power here for the orange commander. It's not the end of the world, but you do have to be careful about that kind of thing. All the build power can be, typically speaking, in Navy, you need about 6 construction turrets total. Until you get into the ultra late game where you have hundreds of metal coming in per second and you're building basically capital ship after capital ship, there really isn't a lot of use for these construction turrets, especially T1. You kind of max out for destroyers, which are the most expensive boat, around six construction turrets. So really building this many of them only wastes the metal that they're worth. It does, of course, provide you that basis to step up your tech game, though. I wouldn't say it's entirely useless, but it's definitely going to be a little bit inefficient. Little inefficiencies, though, can add up quite quickly here in this destroyer. Whoa, taking some heavy hits from those submarines. Yeah, not bad, though. It does dish out those depth charges quite easily. But as the submarines engage, as well as the plasma fire, yeah, that destroyer goes down pretty quick. These submarines are not cheap here. The Orca submarines are 580 metal and very, very heavy hitting. They're one of the units of all time, I would say, as far as the Cortex faction goes. They teched, cries out the red commander, who lost the engagement on the northern side, is trying to reclaim to get back as much of this metal as possible, but is in a dire way as far as the engagement on this part went. Those destroyers, man, they hit with a lot of punch. And the more you have, the easier it is to tear down your enemy's army from afar and from out of range, where they can't really do anything. Nicely done by the blue commanders. They have thoroughly won the Navy game. They now have the tech advantage and the metal advantage, the position advantage. Means that once these frigates are cleaned up and once the southern side is mopped up, this is going to be a pretty easy game for the Navy players to win. As long as you don't take any ridiculously bad trades here. Oh, nice D-gun there from the blue commander, just barely caught that. Tank commander went down and the blue commander went in for the D-gun. Might have to pay for it, though, with the ultimate sacrifice. A little bit of dodging and diving, but the blue commander goes down as well. Maroon forces suffer immensely for it, but still some of them remain. Now again, not the end of the world because T2 is already on its way, and indeed you can see those hounds marching out of the laboratory on all 4 legs, headed towards the front line, trying to reinforce a lot of these frontline position. My goodness, okay, well, I thought the Navy game was well and over, but I guess all it takes is 6 submarines firing away right here. Yeah, you know what? The destroyer's gonna go down, and then suddenly there's nothing to deal with any of this. Wow. Well, okay. That's a disappointing moment right there. The T2 lab has been completely crumbled, and it means, of course, that these T2 constructors are really all that's left. T2 lab is up and running right now for the Cyan Commander Rebellion, so eventually we're going to see this dealt with. But yeah, the destroyers keep going down before they can actually kill these. Oh, what an unfortunate situation there for a Seafoam Green hero who's just desperately trying to clean up these submarines. What a graveyard right here. My goodness, that is over 4,500 metal worth of ships and subs and all the rest of it on the southern side right here. The Cyan Commander are going to be in charge of holding a large swath of land right now in order to contest all these units back so that they don't do a whole bunch of damage. Submarines, of course, are untouchable by the destroyer here, the Despot battleship. Yeah, I mean, sure. Just like that, down to 60-ish% HP from the Pink Barrage. Finally, those torpedo launchers are going to engage some kind of static defense to save the day here. But not an ideal situation whatsoever. Okay, and destroyer blocks the torpedo launcher too. The only static defense. Oh my goodness. The T1 submarines managing to do it. This is ridiculous. Buccaneers are what we should be aiming for at this point. Trying to use to clean all this up. Some of those T2 submarine, the Predator submarines now coming out at this point as well. Ooh, Spybot, juicy Spybot connection against a whole bunch of Sheldon and some thugs as well. That's a beautiful, beautiful engagement right there for these Fiends that are going to burn across the face of all these Sheldon, blasting apart thousands of metal worth of green frontline army. Hound's in trouble too as those Fiends streak northward. They streak northward here to try and take out as much of this blue as possible. Switch to their Gauss mode though, those Hounds will do decently against the Fiends. Not ideal, I would say, by virtually any measure, but decently. They're going to be, at the very least, able to deal with them. Cleaning up the rest of those and making this fightable. Fightable, I would say. Despot now firing away here, trying to pop away the destroyers at long range here. It's about time that we start considering a pinpointer or two. Those naval pinpointers, very useful, of course, for these boats that fire out into the fog of war constantly. Metal extractors need to come up and online as well. And it looks like the Cyan Commander is planning on that. Just a matter of time before these naval advanced metal extractors do come up and online. The T2 submarines also pushing forward here. Lovely stuff. One of the things that these T2 submarines afford you that a lot of times I feel like is neglected, but is quite an advantage, is the fact that they are excellent scouts. They're effectively cloaked, right, to anything that doesn't have sonar presence, which means that they do a wonderful job of actually firing away at things and scouting out enemy positions that are otherwise a little bit more difficult to trace down. Destroyers here are going to be easily able to shut down these submarines, though. Despite them being T2, they really don't have enough sustain to actually go up against destroyers. Really, what the Predator submarines are best at is clearing out amphibious bots, like things like the Duck, of course, but also clearing out big boats like the Capital ship. They're sort of a perfect strike force for dealing with capital ships. Oh no. Another massive EMP connects with the Mauser and the Sheldon, that's what they're called. The Meldon. That is about as efficient a trade as you could possibly hope for, making up all the difference right here that the blue team lost on the front lines earlier on. Oh, the sharpshooters are out, but there's not enough energy. That's a bummer. The sharpshooters, they can bring this back one clickety-clack at a time as long as you keep them microed properly and you keep them firing constantly. Eventually, the sharpshooters can bring this back, but you have to kill production every once in a while so that you can actually fire them. What a bummer of a situation here. Yeah, I think we have enough sharpshooters to actually engage this. There we go. You can see as soon as they start firing away, they are going to chip down this army really, really nicely. Blue force is pushing forward. The Yellow Commander pushed back to their front gate. We have Fiends to try and defend this, as well as a whole bunch of Sheldon. The Fiend here sort of acting as the spotter for the Sheldon to fire away at. Pipple turret also quite nice for dealing with these T1 medium tanks. You can see it does quite a hefty burst of damage, so it does actually shoot down these medium tanks really nicely. One of the few static defenses that I would say can go tit for tat for medium tanks. Riot tanks here. Also pushing forward. Also, well, not struggling to pop the build power so much, but definitely struggling to get into position. They're quite slow. There we go, though. Build power in a whole bunch of trouble. The red commander calls a resign vote. My goodness. This is not a good situation, but I wouldn't say it's resign-worthy. The yellow commander cleaning up these tanks, of course, means is going to have tons and tons of metal available in order to actually deal with all this, right? To rebuild all this. So getting back into this game is not the end of the world. There's still some build power up and running as well. This is a completely recoverable situation right here for the yellow commander. We just need a Twitcher or something, some res bots, anything to get back into this game, and we're going to be right as rain. Submarine. Whoa, sneaking around. T2 boats now out and about for the red commander. We do indeed have the submarines continuing, the T1 submarines continuing to be a menace. Not bad whatsoever. I think with the addition of these Predator submarines as well as the Despot, I think it's basically an unbeatable composition. Those are going to be good enough to go basically anywhere you need to. The tick spam now marching forward. Okay. Again, not bad. Acting as the spotter here that the Sheldon need to actually fire away at full power. Full range, full power. Fiend here, of course, doing quite a bit of damage as well. Every burst that it fires, melting away the armor plating on those heavy, or medium tanks, rather. Red Commander apparently apparently killing the submarine here. All is well. All is well on the red front, aside from the fact that, of course, we're missing quite a few metal extractors here. So the blue economy is phenomenal. I think the lead for the blue team comes almost directly from this economy they've got built up here. You can see the Cyan Commander, my goodness, pulling in 133 metal per second. It might even be time to go for a capital ship. At 133 metal per second, you can start to consider building those very, very nice T2. Technically T2, T3s. Wax 334 does go down. Loads of sharpshooters available, though. Surprised, actually, that the sharpshooters aren't getting more value here. I suppose with the radar bots included, yeah, we can sort of fire away into the distance right here, as we can see. Somebody built a seismic detector. I don't know where exactly it's at, but somewhere around here there's, oh, there it is, on the front line. Yeah, I think the green commander are a little bit traumatized from being blasted apart over and over and over again. There we go. Radar bot has been targeted down, and so that, of course, means that now this entire composition is exposed to the fire of anything out of range right here. Big old fighter wave here, clashes against the air forces right now, manages to take out the gunships. Nicely done. Man, those T1 Valiant air fighters, they can do a lot of damage. Popping down the T2 torpedo bombers that were built up to try and win back the Navy as well. This is an excellent air contest right now for the Purple Commander. Must be thrilled with the way that this is going. We need some anti-air up and running, but obviously, without a constructor, with air constructors only, it's pretty difficult to get your air power situated. Anti-air tower finally firing away right here, but it's definitely leaves a little bit for want, I would say. Now the termites are waddling their way across the map. A nice control right here on the blue team. Managing to lock down the sea, and it's so important, especially on this map, but on maps like Supreme Isthmus and others as well. It's really, really important to control the seas, because there's so many opportunity paths for attacking the enemy if you do manage to control those. This array of sharpshooters is dangerous, though. I will say they've definitely provided a really, really stable basis for the red team to continue to engage here. Sharpshooter is also not bad against against boats, as we should see here in any second. Clicking away. Well, just like that, the radar boat has disappeared. It's the magic disappear button. Rocketbots cries out the pink commander. Close, but not quite that. Probably referring to rocket spiders. It's actually going to be termites, the Cortex variant, with a little heat ray schnozzle mounted atop their multi-legged head. Did you know spiders don't have heads? They just have, like, body 1 and body 2.
Battle started.
There is a technical name for it, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But they don't have heads. I thought that was interesting. Their mouths and eyes and whatnot are just, like, strapped to their chest, basically. What an economy back here, my goodness. Raint, or Ra1 NT, the brown commander here. Clearly familiar with the economics of Beyond All Reason, I would say. Well aware of the way to eco-scale and how to continually make sure that eco-scale is being used here. We've got a T3 laboratory, we've got T1 spam coming out here. Definitely a player that seems to me a little bit past the 8 Chevron count. Or the 8 open skill count, I mean. That's why the OS system is not necessarily the best. It tends to be inaccurate in the best cases of scenarios. Radar jammers included here are lovely, of course. It means these sharpshooters are cloaked from any jammer presence. It means that they can fire away here at the medium tanks, doing a phenomenal job of blasting down this composition of tanks before it even has a chance to trade out against anything. The one downside to sharpshooters, the one downside I will acknowledge, is the fact that, of course, they tend to overkill things. Yeah, so when a sharpshooter kills something, it tends to blast it to smithereens, like that gauntlet you saw right there. Instead of leaving a wreckage behind that you can reclaim, the sharpshooters tend to just obliterate it. And that is a bummer, because it does mean, of course, that you're not going to get as much metal out of an engagement with sharpshooters, but it also means that your enemy isn't going to get the metal. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, but it works. And it works phenomenally, especially when your opponent is just watching their units disappear over and over again. We got another spider in the pass. Sexy Kebab 33 moving into position. At this point, you got to consider as much anti-air as possible, right? We're continually saving up units here. Are we ready for a capital ship? I feel like it's time. The blue team going for massive amounts of units, but not necessarily going for that higher tech. Capital ship's going to be finished pretty quickly here for the red commander, who appears to have taken over. Oh, for the orange commander. I see what's happened here. Okay. I was wondering. I was going to say, the red commander didn't build this facility here. We are going to pump out the capital ship. Okay. It all depends on how this engagement goes. Ooh, commander is self-destructing right here. Oh, that's a juicy self-destruction. Boom goes the commander right in the middle of all this. Scratches up a whole bunch of those boats, and more importantly than that, kills all the res subs underneath this. So no reclaim is going to be available here. Submarines, not really their intended purpose as assault troops here. They're going to be bled out easily by the depth charge launchers here from the red commander, the paladins, as well as the torpedoes from the predator submarines, of course. Now the capital ship is out. Okay. Keep the capital ship alive and it will reward you greatly. Its long-range plasma cannons are devastating, especially if you can manage to fire them at land. But against Navy, of course, as well. It's going to continuously fire those long-range plasma cannons at whatever it can find. It will also, of course, fire them at anything anything land-based that it can find, but it'll also fire its triple guns. Those have much less range, but they do pack quite a wallop. As you can see them firing away now, they're very, very quick. Wow, don't call it a comeback, but the red team has managed to pull themselves back into this Navy fight in one fell swoop. We just need a bunch of res bots to pick up all this stuff, either eating up the wreckage or reclaiming it. This is going to be wonderful. The blue team's still maintaining an advantage as far as the economy goes, but definitely the eco-scaling looking a little more uniform, shall we say, here for the red team, as it looks like we're ready to continue scaling back here. Some beautiful E-converter, APHIS scaling shenanigans going on in the backline, as some T3 is being pumped out here as well. That T3 difference is not to be underestimated. One of the issues you have with fighting T3 is that no matter how you fight it, even if you fight it with the most efficient unit, it's still going to be pretty inefficient, like relatively inefficient. Mammoths are probably a great example. They're basically the perfect unit that Cortex has to counter T3, and they're still a little inefficient to counter T3 with. Okay. Unescorted bombing run is coming around the pass right now. T2 fighters, or T1 fighters instead of T2 fighters, means these won't go down in time. Bombs away directly on top of the fusion reactor cluster. Oh no. Boom goes the base of the Pink Air Commander, who did hold all of the air forces in their hand and now are relinquished to a fine atomic mist. Bombers taking out the heavy anti-air. The light anti-air will be sufficient, though, to take all of this down. Capital ship continuing to shell away over here. The capital ship needs to be booking it towards the other side, though. Rocket spiders in the hills, meanwhile. The problem with rocket spiders is, of course, that they're very inaccurate. I want a close-up shot of this one real quick. What an epic composition this is. Firing away lasers and anti-air and Gauss cannons. The ideal strategy here. So as you breach your Navy games, you start to learn how to play Navy. The ideal strategy is, of course, to get this capital ship within range of the laboratories and start chipping away at them. So that would be somewhere around here, right, is where that capital ship could shell away and start hitting these laboratories over here in the production. Once you can start hitting the production, you're going to be in a really good way. But until then, the capital ship is essentially just a static defense that you can slowly creep forward here. You can see the red commander catty cornering the capital ship forward to try and keep both guns firing at the same time. We do not want to waste this going alone into the dark night. Into the cold night. One of the... Oh, so many submarines. Oh my goodness. One of the issues that the capital ship has, of course, is... the Armada capital ship has, of course, is that it can't fire backwards. So that front gun, you can see it's not firing right now because it doesn't have a target that it can hit because it's going to collide with the rear gun. Submarines jumping on the capital ship. I don't know why it was sent forward like that. That was a definite waste of the capital ship's firepower. Should have been escorted by this entire other fleet. Not entirely sure why we threw away that capital ship there. Resurrecting it, always an option, but going to take forever. I think reclaiming it makes a little bit more sense, especially with submarines already on the prowl over here. Yeah, resurrecting, or reclaiming that rather, just using the wreckage to fund another one wouldn't be the end of the world. We've got Banshees in the air. Quite odd. Banshees and Shuriken to deal with Recluses and Webers. Definitely an odd composition, to say the very least. Terminator tank doing a great job, though. Essentially uncontested down here, for whatever reason. More than happy to just continue blasting through here, I suppose. Not like the Quakers are going to be much use against the against the Terminator tank regardless. Whoa, geothermal is EMP'd here as well. Nice move. Oh, splendid micro right here from the red team. Making the very best of a very, very dire situation. Yeah, I would say their map position was very, very poor basically this entire game and has suddenly come back to a fairly winnable state. Yeah. T3, much better than T2. Eon's better than T1. And now it's hurtling directly towards the base right here of the blue team. Thor continuing to fire away at whatever he can. Popping the metal extractors and the LLTs, all sorts of stuff. Bombers connecting with it as well. Yeah, Air Forces have been knocked out of this game. I don't think the red team has quite realized that the Air Forces have been relinquished at this point. Bombers eventually managing to deal with the Thor tank, the heavy tank, the Terminator tank. Making relatively short work of it, actually. These heavy bombers do a lot of damage to those very, very slow Terminator tanks. But the tanks did their job. They cracked open this midsection here, meaning, of course, that now that this is open, more and more units can continue to assail through. One of the other options, of course, is to hit the D key to fire away the EMP Starburst missile. It means, of course, that you're going to be able to paralyze any static defenses like the Blue Commander has set up here. All these bulwarks are for naught if you manage to just EMP them and walk right in. Very, very easy. Second capital ship on the prowl. Torpedo bombers, yeah, okay, gonna drop their torpedo bombs. I want to say it's a worthwhile torpedo bombing. We are gonna lose all the torpedo bombers here, though. Anti-air is thick enough to defend that capital ship that I think this will be mopped up quite nicely. Where are the capital ships for the blue team? I am surprised to see that we don't have any capital ships. We're still producing destroyers, my goodness. Yeah, we have more than enough metal here for Rebellion to go ahead and go into capital ships. I think it is definitely time. Bombers trying to bomb down whatever they can, yeah. Sensing that there might be a better target around here, and indeed finding the T3 production facility here of the Maroon Commander and blasting it to smithereens. Suddenly the bombers are thinking, hey, wait a second. Fighters still haven't killed us. Maybe it's time we go into the backline and do a little bit more bombing. That's what I'd be thinking anyways. EMP on the Demon right here will mean that the Fiends can jump on top of it, nicely cleaning it up. Yeah. We're gonna need anti-air, and we're gonna need a lot of it. I hope there's anti-air on the works right here, because as it stands right now, these bombers are largely uncontested. The fact that these haven't been microed towards the base yet is infuriating. There we go. Finally, the purple bombers are gonna go ahead and target down the base over here, the actual production of the Maroon Commander. They're going to be targeting the fusion reactors in the backline, obviously the juiciest target available. There was certainly sufficient time to get anti-air defenses up and running, but the red team did not respond in time, and so unfortunately for them, the bombers do connect across the map. Going to start deploying their payload. The APHIS of the 10. Oh, well, you know what? The Brown Commander building tons of anti-air, but what does it matter if your neighbor is bombed And just like that, a brilliant chain reaction takes out everybody in the back line of the red team. A beautiful push to try and recontain the Navy, and I think they might have done it if that first capital ship hadn't been lost and it would have slow pushed across the naval field, continuing to damage this front line as it went, but it wasn't the way that the cards fell, and so at the end of the day, the blue team with a hard-fought battle will manage to take the win. Thanks a ton for watching. I sure hope you enjoyed. If you did, of course, feel free always to join up on the Discord, which is linked down below in the description. Like and subscribe and all that stuff that YouTubers always love to encourage people to do as well. Helps put Bar out on the map, which is a noble cause that I can use to shell out my own services. Other than that, though, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the very next game of Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody.